An update on the tattoo. I can't remember, I think it might be the 6th update or something. I've been going hard at it anyway. I've been looking at printing wheels. Now this is a Mark 1 wheel centre. This is printed in my normal resin that I've printed the rest of the loco in. It's come out quite well. On the printer at the moment is the Rev A wheel. I think these are going to be quite durable enough. I think they're nice and strong. I'm quite pleased with the results. They've come out cleanly. I think you can probably see they're quite nice. I've just made a few very minor tweaks for the job that's on the printer at the moment. And I bought some 14mm coach wheels and knocked the centres out, and that is the tyre off these coach wheels. And the very simple idea is that mates into that very neatly, and a little bit of epoxy should see that secured very nicely. Now that leaves one with the problem of making sure that that bore is true, because one really can't rely on the printing to do that, and of course it's terribly important that that bore is true, otherwise you end up with a wobbly wheel. And I thought long and hard about it. There's a nice thing called a pot chuck that you can buy in America. I think you can buy them over here. But anyway, I thought I'd have a bash at printing one. This is on the PLA printer. I chose PLA because PLA is quite strong and I quite like it for tools. And this is it. It's actually got a little centre in so that I will be able to true it up on the lathe. I've not actually used it in anger yet, but you can see it's basically a collet. And the wheel, let me reassemble that again. Oops, daisy, yeah. The wheel will sit in, it will sit in there, yeah, there we go. It'll sit in there like that, and I have my lathe collet, that's 10mm lathe collet, and that will go all the way in there, and I tighten up the lathe collet, and that will clamp the this printed collet up tight without damaging the wheel, and I can then face things off and bore that cleanly and accurately. That's the principle. And obviously it was more or less free to do, and I can print these any size I want. So I'm quite pleased with that, and that's what I'm doing with the wheels. Now I use a 2mm axle out of preference for my stuff, and of course the 14mm gauge one has outside cranks. You'll notice this also has outside cranks. That is correct. Even though it was an inside wheel, it was still cast with outside cranks, and in fact they just had a pin to a blind pin to blank that off, much to my surprise, but that's how it was. But I shall also print one of these with a crank shape for truing up the outside cranks in exactly the same way. So that's that. This is only very mildly interesting as prints go. This is angle. you might just be able to see the profile. It's a thin section, about 1.5 mil by 1.5 mil, and it's a length of printed angle. Why bother? With a very sad demise of Eileen's Emporium, angle is that little bit harder to come by, but it gives me the opportunity to print any dimension angle I want, which is really useful. As you know, I like experimenting, and this works really well. It's a little bit flexible, which is fine. It epoxies very, very well, which is useful. And what that's for, let me show you, is the loco itself. And I've just dropped a cylinder, but that's fine. And this shows progress so far. Now, you can see it's the chassis reinforcing angle on top there, and also there's a bit between the frame and buffer beam. And it's very easy just to cut it off and epoxy it on. Again, I use Devcon, which is my preference. So this is progress so far. Now the only bit that isn't glued on is the cylinder, because I've got to make the crosshead and slide it on before I fasten the cylinder. A rather backwards thing to do, but that's life. The slide bar is silver soldered to the motion bracket, so it's a good hard joint. But I've finished all the hot works on the chassis now. Reinforcement angles are there. You can see here the bearings for the reverser cross shaft, and you can see the steam brake, and in fact that that hinge actually operates. It won't have to at all. There's bearings to go on there for the brake cross shaft, but that's all there. The chassis itself is all silver soldered. That meant in theory I could soft solder anything on top of it with impunity. In practice I haven't done so, but I could have done so. You'll notice there are also springs inside, as per the prototype. They look nice. They're obviously prints as well, and all the leaves are printed on that. You probably won't get to see them, but they're all there. And it's all there. There are, I've assembled it slot and tab. I'm about to fill those, and I shall use epoxy and made into a paste using talcum powder. So it forms a thick paste, and I shall work that in, and that'll fettle back with a knife and a file to give me a very nice surface. So I'll clean up the slot and tabs, and that'll be that. And of course you've seen the back head detail before. That's come out nicely. And since this is a one-piece print, the reversing lever and the handbrake standard are printed as part of all this as well. And the back head itself has all the detail printed in situ on this, including the backhead injector, regulator, and all that. That's all printed in situ. So, considering I wasn't even going to build this model, it started off as a design exercise in Design Spark Mechanical. It's come quite a long way. So there we go. More progress, more stuff to be done, but the details are coming out quite nicely on this. I hope it'll be quite a nice model. Hope it's of interest. See how it progresses.